Welcome to Stories for Sleep Dive into a world of enchanting tales and soothing adventures, where every story is designed to help you unwind, relax, and drift into a peaceful slumber. From magical lands to mysterious journeys, our stories are crafted to calm your mind and spark your imagination. If you love captivating bedtime stories, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share these magical tales with friends and family. Let's make bedtime the most relaxing time of your day. So, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let the magic begin. In the quiet town of Willowbrook, an old mansion stood on the edge of a misty forest. For years, no one had dared to go near it. One rainy evening, a moving truck appeared out of nowhere, delivering a grand, black piano to the mansion. The sight puzzled the townsfolk, as the mansion had been abandoned for decades. The piano seemed out of place, with its polished surface gleaming under the moonlight. A curious boy named Ethan watched from his window, unable to shake off the strange feeling that something was wrong. That night, as the rain tapped against his window, Ethan heard faint piano notes drifting through the air. The melody was haunting but beautiful, tugging at his heart. He wondered who could be playing it in the empty mansion. The next evening, Ethan decided to investigate the mysterious piano. He quietly slipped out of his house and made his way to the mansion. The moonlight guided his steps as he crossed the overgrown garden. When he reached the front door, it creaked open on its own, sending shivers down his spine. Inside, the air was cold, and the faint smell of dust filled his nose. In the center of the grand hall, the piano stood in silence. Ethan hesitated, but took a step closer. Suddenly, the keys began to play on their own, creating a melody that echoed through the room. His heart raced as he realized there was no one sitting at the piano. The sound was both mesmerizing and terrifying, as if the piano itself was alive. The haunting tune refused to leave Ethan's mind. He couldn't sleep that night, his thoughts filled with the mysterious melody. The next morning, he visited the town's library to search for answers. He found an old newspaper article about a famous pianist named Clara who had once lived in the mansion. She was known for her enchanting music, but had vanished without a trace many years ago. Ethan shared his discovery with his friend Lily, who loved ghost stories. Together, they decided to return to the mansion that night. Lily was excited, but Ethan was nervous. As the clock struck midnight, they stepped into the eerie hall. The piano waited for them, silent yet imposing, as if it had been expecting their arrival. Ethan and Lily cautiously approached the piano, their footsteps echoing in the empty hall. Lily placed her hand on the piano's surface, and it felt warm, almost alive. Suddenly, the keys began to move again, playing the same haunting melody Ethan had heard before. This time, however, the music seemed to tell a story. Ethan noticed a piece of sheet music lying on the piano bench. The title read, Clara's Last Symphony. As the piano played, Ethan and Lily saw ghostly images of a woman appearing in the air. She seemed to be trapped, her hands reaching out as if begging for help. The realization struck them the piano wasn't just haunted, it held Clara's soul, forever tied to her unfinished music. Determined to free Clara's spirit, Ethan and Lily decided to finish the symphony. Lily, who knew how to play the piano, carefully followed the notes on the sheet music. The melody grew softer and more beautiful with each key she pressed. The room filled with a golden glow, and the ghostly figure of Clara appeared once more, this time smiling. As Lily played the final note, the piano stopped and the room became silent. Clara's spirit slowly faded away, leaving behind a sense of peace. The once haunted piano now stood quietly, its purpose fulfilled. Ethan and Lily left the mansion, knowing they had witnessed something extraordinary. From that night on, the mysterious tune was never heard again, and the mansion finally rested in silence. A week after Clara's spirit was freed, Ethan and Lily thought the mansion's story had ended. But one stormy night, Ethan woke up to the same haunting melody drifting through his window. His heart sank. "It can't be," he whispered. Gathering his courage, he called Lily, and they both hurried to the mansion under the cover of rain. When they arrived, the piano was playing itself again, but this time the melody was broken and jarring, like a cry for help. The golden glow that had appeared before was now replaced by a cold, eerie blue light. "Something isn't right," Lily murmured, gripping Ethan's arm. They realized that Clara's story might not be as simple as they had thought. Ethan noticed a draft coming from behind the piano, as if air was seeping through a hidden opening. With Lily's help, he pushed the heavy piano aside, revealing a small door in the wall. "What do you think is in there?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. Without waiting, Ethan opened the door, revealing a staircase leading down to a hidden chamber. The chamber was filled with old belongings, sheet music, photographs, and a locked chest. Among the items was a faded picture of Clara with a mysterious man. Lily picked up a note that read, "I can't leave until the truth is revealed." The piano's haunting melody began to echo even louder, as if urging them to uncover the truth. Ethan and Lily searched the chest and found Clara's diary. The entries told a heartbreaking story. Clara had been betrayed by the man in the photograph, her music stolen and her name tarnished. On the night of her final performance, she had confronted him, only to meet a tragic end. Her soul had remained tied to the piano, waiting for justice. As they read the final entry, the room grew colder, and Clara's ghostly figure appeared again. This time she was crying, her hands pointing to the diary. "She wants us to share her story," Ethan realized. Lily nodded, determined to give Clara the recognition she deserved. The next day, Ethan and Lily took Clara's story to the town's historical society. They organized a memorial event at the mansion, where Lily performed Clara's forgotten symphony on the haunted piano. As Lily played, the audience was captivated, and tears flowed as the haunting yet beautiful melody filled the room. For the first time, Clara's music was heard and appreciated by the world. The golden glow returned, enveloping the piano and filling the mansion with warmth. Clara's ghostly figure appeared one last time, bowing gracefully as if thanking Ethan and Lily. After the performance, the mansion felt different, lighter, as though a heavy burden had been lifted. Ethan and Lily stood by the piano, which now seemed like an ordinary instrument. "She's finally at peace," Lily said, smiling softly. The townsfolk agreed, saying they felt the mansion was no longer haunted. Ethan and Lily walked home under the starlit sky, their hearts full of satisfaction. Though the piano's melody would never play again, Clara's story would live on in the hearts of those who heard her music. The once haunted mansion became a place of inspiration, proving that even in death, justice and recognition can bring peace. Months after Clara's story had been shared, the mansion had become a popular site for visitors. But one chilly evening, an old man arrived, claiming to have known Clara. His name was Henry, and his presence stirred curiosity among the townsfolk. He carried a leather-bound journal and asked to see the piano. "There's more to the story," he whispered, his voice trembling with guilt. Ethan and Lily, now considered the protectors of Clara's legacy, accompanied Henry to the mansion. As they stood before the piano, Henry revealed the truth: he was the man in the photograph. Tears filled his eyes as he admitted his betrayal. "I stole her music, but I never wanted her to disappear," he confessed. Henry opened his journal to reveal a piece of Clara's music that had never been completed. "She was working on this the night she vanished," he said. The melody was different, softer and more hopeful than the haunting tune that had echoed through the mansion. Ethan and Lily realized that finishing this piece might be the key to truly freeing Clara's spirit. Henry begged for forgiveness, promising to help restore Clara's name. Together, they decided to complete the music and hold one final performance. The piano seemed to hum softly, as if it approved of their plan. "It's as if she's still here, waiting," Lily said, feeling a chill run down her spine. As Henry, Lily, and Ethan worked on the music, strange things began to happen. The piano would play random notes, guiding them toward the correct melody. Sheets of music would fall from the bench, revealing patterns and corrections Clara might have intended. It was as if her spirit was actively helping them finish what she had started. One evening, as Lily played the draft of the symphony, Clara's faint figure appeared by the piano. Her expression was no longer sorrowful but hopeful. "She wants us to hurry," Ethan said, understanding the urgency. They knew this was their final chance to set things right. The night of the performance arrived, and the mansion was filled with people eager to hear Clara's final symphony. Henry stood nervously by the piano, holding the completed sheet music. Lily sat at the bench, her hands trembling. The room was silent, the air heavy with anticipation. As Lily began to play, the haunting melody transformed into something beautiful and uplifting. The golden glow returned, brighter than ever, filling the mansion with warmth. Clara's ghostly figure appeared once again, standing beside Henry. She looked at him with forgiveness in her eyes, and he broke down in tears. As the symphony reached its final notes, Clara's figure began to fade. The audience watched in awe as her spirit seemed to ascend, finally free from the pain and betrayal that had kept her tied to the piano. The mansion grew silent, and the piano keys glowed softly, as if bidding her farewell. Henry placed a hand on the piano and whispered, "I'm sorry." The piano responded with a single gentle note, almost like an acknowledgement. Ethan and Lily stood quietly, their hearts full of peace, knowing they had played a part in giving Clara the closure she deserved. The mansion, once shrouded in darkness, became a place of hope and inspiration. The piano, no longer haunted, now stood as a symbol of Clara's legacy. Musicians from across the country visited to play on it, drawn by its history and the story of redemption. Ethan and Lily, now closer than ever, often visited the mansion, feeling a sense of pride in what they had achieved. As they sat by the piano one last time, Ethan said, "This place isn't haunted anymore." It's a reminder that even the darkest stories can have a beautiful ending. The forgotten tune of the haunted piano had finally become a song of peace, its echoes forever etched in the hearts of those who heard it. Months passed, and the mansion's fame grew. One day, Ethan and Lily received an unexpected letter from a wealthy collector named Mr. Grayson. He offered a substantial sum to purchase the piano. "This piano deserves to be in my private collection," the letter read. But something about the offer felt wrong. Lily hesitated. The piano belongs here in the mansion where Clara's story began and ended. Ethan agreed, but the town council, tempted by the money, insisted they consider the offer. As the debate raged, the piano began playing softly at night, as if voicing its own protest. One evening, Ethan and Lily decided to spend the night at the mansion, hoping to understand the piano's strange behavior. As the clock struck midnight, the soft, familiar tune turned dissonant, filling the room with an eerie tension. A chilling wind swept through the mansion, carrying whispers that seemed to say, "Don't let it leave." The next morning, they discovered an old note wedged in the piano keys. It was written in Clara's handwriting. "This piano is not an object of greed. It holds my soul's essence. If removed, the harmony will shatter." Ethan and Lily knew they had to fight to keep the piano where it belonged. Mr. Grayson arrived in town, determined to take the piano. He was a sharp-dressed man with an unsettling aura. "This piano has a unique history, and I'm willing to double my offer," he said smugly. But when he touched the piano, it let out a sharp, discordant note that made him recoil. Ethan confronted him. "This piano isn't for sale. It's a part of Clara's story, and it belongs to the mansion." Grayson's expression darkened. "You're making a mistake," he warned. As he left, the mansion seemed to grow colder, as though bracing itself for what was to come. That night, the mansion came alive with strange happenings. Doors slammed shut on their own, and the golden glow of the piano flickered like a dying flame. It felt as though the mansion was fighting to protect its most precious treasure. Grayson returned with a team of movers, determined to take the piano by force. But as they tried to lift it, the piano emitted a piercing sound that echoed throughout the mansion. The walls shook, and a ghostly figure appeared. It wasn't Clara this time, but a darker, angrier presence. "Leave it," roared, sending Grayson and his men fleeing in terror. Ethan and Lily, shaken by the night's events, discovered another hidden compartment in the piano. Inside was a locket containing Clara's portrait and a letter. The letter explained that the piano had been enchanted by Clara's great-grandmother, a skilled musician and mystic, to protect its owner's legacy. The angry spirit, they realized, was the guardian of the enchantment, awakened only in times of great danger. "The piano isn't just an instrument," Lily said. "It's a vessel of protection, tied to Clara's family. It must stay here." The realization strengthened their resolve to protect the piano at all costs. The town council, swayed by Ethan and Lily's determination and the recent haunting events, unanimously decided to reject Grayson's offer. The mansion, now officially a protected historical site, became a haven for artists and music lovers. The piano remained in its rightful place, untouched and revered. Ethan and Lily visited the mansion one last time before its grand reopening. As Lily ran her fingers over the keys, the piano played a gentle, harmonious tune as if thanking them. For the first time in months, the mansion felt completely at peace. Clara's spirit and the guardian had found their balance, and the forgotten tune of the haunted piano became a melody of unity and preservation, echoing through generations to come. Years passed, and the mansion flourished as a center for music and art. Ethan and Lily had grown older, but their dedication to the piano remained unwavering. The town had embraced the mansion's legacy, and visitors came from far and wide to experience the magic of the piano. Clara's music was no longer a haunting memory, but a celebrated masterpiece. Ethan sat in the grand hall one evening, staring at the piano. "We've done it," he whispered. "Clara's legacy is safe." Lily, now a renowned pianist herself, smiled as she placed her hand on his shoulder. It's not just about the piano anymore. It's about everything it represents: the past, the present, and the future. The anniversary of Clara's disappearance arrived, and the town planned a grand concert in her honor. Musicians from all over would perform the symphony she never finished, bringing her music to life for the first time. The town hall was packed, the air electric with excitement. As the final piece of the symphony was played, the audience fell silent. The piano, bathed in soft light, seemed to glow with an otherworldly energy. Lily, now an accomplished pianist, stepped forward to play the last movement. As her fingers danced across the keys, the notes filled the air like a sweet lullaby, and the audience felt an overwhelming sense of peace. Clara's spirit had finally been set free, her music immortalized for eternity. Years later, when the mansion was nearing its 100th anniversary, something unexpected happened. As the piano sat untouched in the corner of the hall, a faint, familiar tune began to play on its own. It was the first haunting melody that had once filled the mansion, but it sounded different now, softer, more gentle. Ethan and Lily, now elderly, listened in awe. "It's Clara," Lily whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "She's still with us." In her music, the piano, no longer a source of terror, had become a symbol of Clara's eternal presence. The melody echoed through the mansion, bringing peace and joy to all who heard it. Ethan and Lily passed the mantle to the next generation, ensuring the mansion and its legacy would live on. The town's children were taught Clara's music in school, and the mansion hosted annual festivals in her honor. The haunting melody had transformed into a source of inspiration for artists, musicians, and dreamers. One day, a young girl named Amelia visited the mansion, drawn by the legend of the haunted piano. As she sat before the keys, the piano responded to her touch, playing the melody as if it recognized her. She smiled, knowing that the music would never truly be forgotten. Clara's legacy had become a timeless dream passed down to the next generation. As time went on, the piano's music continued to inspire. The mansion became a place of pilgrimage for those seeking artistic inspiration, and many claimed to feel Clara's presence in the hallways. The piano, now enchanted in a different way, had a magical aura that only those with pure hearts could fully appreciate. Amelia, now a young woman, returned to the mansion many years later, carrying a new composition she had written. As she played, the piano's sound filled the hall, but this time it was not just Clara's melody. It was something new, something that blended the past with the future, a symbol of the piano's eternal power. The mansion had truly become a place where dreams and legacies converged. The final chapter of the mansion's story came when Amelia, now a renowned composer, stood at the piano one last time. She played the full symphony, blending Clara's music with her own compositions. As the last note echoed through the hall, a soft light enveloped the room. The piano, after centuries of silence and sorrow, played its final, perfect note, the note of peace. Ethan and Lily, now long gone, had seen their dream fulfilled. Clara's legacy was not only preserved but had grown beyond what they ever imagined. The piano, no longer haunted, had become a timeless symbol of hope, redemption, and the power of music. And as the final note resonated, the mansion was at peace, forever echoing the memory of Clara's forgotten tune. Years passed, and the mansion was still a place of wonder. Visitors came to hear Clara's music and feel the strange energy that resonated from the piano. Amelia, now an established composer, became the official guardian of the mansion. Every year, she held a concert in Clara's honor. The mansion was a symbol of the timeless bond between past and present. One night, while Amelia played a new composition, a chill filled the air. The piano, once again, began playing on its own, as if it had a message to deliver. The notes were softer now, slower, but still beautiful. The audience felt as though Clara's spirit was watching over them, guiding them through the music. It was as if the piano had become the bridge between two worlds. Amelia began to notice something strange. Whenever the piano played by itself, the notes would linger in the air longer than they should. She couldn't understand why, but it seemed like the piano was trying to communicate something. She decided to stay overnight in the mansion, hoping to uncover the truth. That night, as the clock struck midnight, the piano began to play once again. This time, the melody was darker, filled with sorrow. Amelia's heart raced as she listened closely. The notes seemed to spell out a name, Ethan. It was then that Amelia realized the piano wasn't just connected to Clara, it was also tied to the people who had protected it. Ethan's spirit, too, had become a part of the piano's legacy. Amelia decided to investigate further. She returned to the mansion's library and found an old letter from Clara to her family. It mentioned that her music was unfinished, that there was a melody left unsung. The letter was cryptic, but it suggested that the key to understanding the piano's full power was hidden within the music itself. Determined to uncover the truth, Amelia played the notes she had heard the night before, repeating the mysterious sequence over and over. Suddenly, the piano's sound changed. It was no longer just a melody, it was a conversation. The notes seemed to interact with her emotions, reflecting her thoughts and fears. It was as if the piano itself was alive, speaking through music. As the music played, Amelia began to hear voices, faint and distant. They were like whispers, but they weren't in words, they were in feelings. Each note seemed to echo the emotions of those who had played it before her. Clara's joy, Ethan's sorrow, and the piano's own longing to be heard were all woven into the music. Amelia stopped playing, feeling overwhelmed. She realized that the music wasn't just about Clara's story. It was about the human connections formed through the music. The piano had always been more than an object, it had been a vessel for the emotions of everyone who had touched it. She now understood that the melody's true purpose was to unite souls, to heal old wounds, and to complete the unfinished story. In the weeks that followed, Amelia composed a final symphony based on the mysterious notes and emotions she had uncovered. It was a piece that told the story of Clara, Ethan, and the piano itself. The music was both haunting and beautiful, a fitting tribute to everything the piano had represented over the years. On the night of the grand performance, the mansion was filled with guests, all eager to hear the last chapter of the piano's story. As Amelia played the symphony, the piano's sound echoed louder than ever before. The notes swirled around the room, and as the final note played, a sense of calm washed over the audience. The piano had finally found peace. Clara and Ethan's spirits had been set free, and the mansion was at rest. After the performance, Amelia looked at the piano one last time. It stood silently in the corner, its golden keys now still. The piano had fulfilled its purpose. Clara's music was no longer forgotten, and the spirits who had once haunted it were now at peace. The mansion, once a place of mystery and fear, had become a sanctuary for music and memories. Amelia had completed the cycle, ensuring that the piano's legacy would continue for generations to come. The mansion's halls would forever echo with the sounds of Clara's music, a melody that transcended time and brought healing to all who listened. And so, the forgotten tune of the haunted piano became a timeless symphony, one that would never be lost again. Amelia's symphony had touched the hearts of all who had attended the concert, but something deep inside her urged her to play one more time. She sat before the piano in the grand hall, her fingers lightly brushing the keys. The mansion was empty now, quiet, yet there was an unspoken promise hanging in the air. As Amelia played the opening notes of Clara's haunting melody, the room seemed to come alive. The piano resonated with an energy unlike any other, as if the music itself was thanking her for bringing peace to the spirits it had once haunted. The final performance was more than just a song, it was the closure of a long and painful story, and the beginning of a new chapter. The night grew still as Amelia played the last notes of the symphony. The room was filled with a soft glow, and for a moment, Amelia felt a cool breeze across her face. She closed her eyes, sensing a presence beside her. It was as though Clara herself had come to say goodbye. The piano's sound echoed one final time, and then it stopped. The soft glow dimmed, and the house seemed to exhale a long sigh. Amelia opened her eyes and smiled, understanding that Clara and Ethan were at peace. The music had done what it was meant to do. It had freed their spirits, allowed them to rest, and passed their legacy on to future generations. With the piano silent and the mansion now still, Amelia took a long, last look around the room. She had been a part of something extraordinary, something that transcended the ordinary boundaries of time and space. The piano had witnessed so much, held so many stories, both joyful and tragic. Now, it would stand as a symbol of resilience and redemption. As she turned to leave the hall, Amelia's footsteps echoed in the silence. The mansion, once full of ghostly music and unsettling energy, had transformed into a sanctuary of peace. She knew she had fulfilled her duty, and now it was time for the mansion to rest, its story complete. In the years that followed, the mansion became a place where music lovers, artists, and historians came to pay their respects. Clara's story was told and retold, and the piano was preserved as a historic artifact. It had become a symbol of the healing power of music, its haunting tune forever imprinted in the town's history. One fateful evening, a young musician who had heard tales of the haunted piano visited the mansion. As he approached the piano, he hesitated for a moment. The room felt charged with energy, as if the echoes of Clara's melody still lingered in the air. Tentatively, he sat down and began to play. The familiar haunting tune filled the room once again, as if it had never been forgotten. The young musician, inspired by the piano's story, decided to dedicate his life to composing music that would carry forward the legacy of the haunted piano. Over the years, his work became known throughout the world, and he eventually returned to the mansion to perform a new symphony that blended Clara's music with his own. The performance was a momentous occasion. As the notes played, the mansion seemed to come alive with energy once more. The music swirled in the air, uniting the past and the present. It was as if the spirits of Clara and Ethan were listening, guiding the young composer's hands. The haunting tune had evolved, transformed into something even more beautiful, resonating with the hearts of all who heard it. The mansion, now a place of artistic expression and peace, stood as a testament to the power of music to heal and transcend. The haunted piano, once a source of fear, was no longer a ghostly relic. It had become a living, breathing entity that carried the stories of those who had played it before. As the years passed, the piano's song continued, not as a haunting tune, but as a legacy, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, music has the power to bring light. The mansion remained a place where artists could come to connect with the past and create something new, and the haunting melody of the piano would never truly fade. The forgotten tune of the haunted piano had become a timeless symphony, one that would be remembered and cherished for generations to come. As the years passed, the mansion was renovated to preserve its charm. New artists came, drawn by the tale of the haunted piano. Each one was inspired by the stories of Clara, Ethan, and the enchanted music that lived on. The mansion's halls once again filled with sounds, but this time they were filled with joy and creativity. The haunted past had given way to an artistic future. In the quiet moments of reflection, Amelia would often visit. She would walk through the now lively mansion, listening to the new symphonies that played. The piano was no longer a source of sorrow, but a beacon of inspiration. Its keys, once still, now danced to the rhythms of new compositions, and the memories of Clara and Ethan lived on in every note. The piano had become a central part of every concert held in the mansion. Musicians from all over the world would come to play its keys, adding their own mark to its legacy. Many spoke of hearing something unique when they played. Some claimed they felt a presence beside them, as if the piano was guiding their hands, telling them which notes to play. One evening, a renowned pianist sat at the piano, playing an original piece that had been inspired by Clara's song. As he played, he felt the notes swell into a beautiful, powerful symphony that seemed to envelop the room. For a brief moment, he saw a vision of Clara standing by his side, her gentle smile filled with gratitude. The pianist stopped and whispered, "Thank you, understanding that the piano had truly come alive." The legend of the haunted piano continued to grow. But the more people visited, the more they realized that the piano was no longer haunted in the traditional sense. It had become a living entity, a vessel of memories and emotions. Visitors no longer feared it but revered it. They understood that the piano was not a source of terror, but a symbol of healing. One night after a concert, the mansion's caretaker heard soft whispers. Following the sound, he entered the grand hall where the piano stood. There, he saw the faint outline of a woman, shimmering like a ghost, her hands resting on the keys. The caretaker stood still, not in fear, but in awe. He could feel the peace in the air, the weight of years of music, and the souls that had passed through it. Clara's spirit was no longer restless, it was content. The piano, now a place of pilgrimage for musicians, had evolved into a living, breathing presence. It was no longer just an instrument, it had become part of the mansion itself. People who played it often felt as if they were not only creating music, but also connecting with the souls of those who had played before them. The piano had become a bridge between past and present, a thread woven through time. It was on a stormy night that a young composer, captivated by the stories of the haunted piano, ventured into the mansion. As he sat down to play, the storm outside intensified, and the room seemed to darken. The first note he struck echoed throughout the mansion, and with it came a sudden, powerful vision of Clara. She smiled at him and nodded, as if to say, "This is your moment." The young composer played with all his heart, feeling as though the piano itself was guiding him. As the decades passed, the mansion became a renowned sanctuary for music lovers. The haunted piano had become its centerpiece, not just for its history, but for its ongoing legacy. It was a place where music could be composed, shared, and experienced in a way that transcended time. The notes of Clara's song were no longer a distant echo, they were a living part of the mansion's soul. Amelia, now an old woman, returned to the mansion one final time. She sat at the piano, her hands resting gently on the keys. She had lived a long life, and she had seen how the mansion had transformed. The piano's haunting melody was no longer a shadow of the past, but a bright, living song. Amelia played the final notes of Clara's symphony, knowing that the piano would carry on forever. And so, the story of the haunted piano came full circle. What had once been a source of fear and sorrow had transformed into a symbol of hope and renewal. The piano, with its timeless melody, continued to inspire and connect the hearts of all who came to play it. It had become not just a part of history, but a living testament to the power of music and memory. The mansion, once full of haunting whispers, was now a place of peace. Clara's legacy lived on, not just in the piano, but in every person who had touched it, in every melody that had been born from it. The haunted piano was no longer a ghost of the past, but a beacon of the future, its forgotten tune now etched forever in the hearts of those who believed in its magic. One cold winter's night, a stranger arrived at the mansion. Dressed in a long coat, he had the look of someone who had traveled for many days. The caretaker welcomed him, curious about his purpose. The stranger had heard the legend of the haunted piano and had come to see it for himself. There was something mysterious about him, a quiet urgency in his eyes. He made his way to the grand hall, where the piano stood silently. The mansion seemed eerily quiet that night, as if holding its breath. The stranger sat at the piano, his fingers brushing the keys lightly. He began to play a melody, one that was not Clara's, but one that seemed to echo the same haunting beauty. The caretaker watched in awe, realizing that the piano's magic was not confined to the past. It had drawn this visitor, too, in search of something. The notes the stranger played filled the room, a melody so haunting that it seemed to come from another time. The caretaker felt a chill down his spine as the room grew colder. It was as if the very walls of the mansion remembered the music, resonating with the ghosts of its past. For a moment, the stranger's face seemed to change, and the caretaker wondered if he had seen something beyond the mortal realm. When the music stopped, the room fell into complete silence. The stranger stood up, his face pale, as though he had seen something he had not expected. He turned to the caretaker and whispered, "I found it." The caretaker, unsure of what he meant, only nodded, sensing that the stranger had discovered something deep within the mansion, something that even time could not erase. Days passed after the stranger's visit, and the mansion returned to its peaceful rhythm. But the caretaker could not forget the look in the stranger's eyes. There was a deep connection between him and the piano, something that went beyond mere curiosity. One evening, as the caretaker walked through the halls, he found a letter on the piano, written in delicate handwriting. The letter was from the stranger. In it, he spoke of a connection he felt to the piano, a bond that stretched back through generations. He explained that his family had been tied to the mansion in some way, though he could not remember how. The more he played, the more he felt a pull towards the piano, as if it was calling him. He promised to return one day, but for now he would leave the mansion to rest, knowing that his fate and the piano's were intertwined. The letter left the caretaker with more questions than answers. He had always believed the piano's story was about Clara and Ethan, but now it seemed there were other connections to uncover. The caretaker spent the next few weeks in the mansion's library, searching through old records and letters. He found references to the piano in documents long forgotten, including one that mentioned a mysterious ancestor of the stranger. It seemed that the stranger's family had once owned the mansion long ago. But something had happened, an event that had been erased from history. The caretaker began to piece together the truth. The piano had been part of a lineage, its music crossing generations, waiting for someone to return and unlock its true meaning. The stranger, it seemed, was the key. Several months later, the stranger returned to the mansion. He had traveled far and wide, uncovering the mysteries of his family's past. He now understood the deep connection between him and the piano. He was, in fact, a direct descendant of Clara's own family. His bloodline had been intertwined with the mansion and its music, and it was his destiny to finally bring the story full circle. He sat at the piano once again, this time playing with a newfound understanding. The music he created was unlike any other, a perfect harmony of past and present. The spirits of Clara and Ethan seemed to fill the room, guiding his hands as the piano sang its forgotten tune. It was as if the mansion itself was alive, and the music was its heartbeat. As the last notes of the music lingered in the air, the mansion grew still. The caretaker, standing in the doorway, felt a sense of peace that he had never known before. The stranger, now understanding his role in the mansion's legacy, stood up from the piano, his eyes filled with gratitude. The haunting tune had been brought to life once more, not as a curse, but as a gift. The stranger turned to the caretaker and smiled. "It's time for the mansion to rest, for the spirits to find peace," he said softly. "The music will live on, but its story is now complete." The caretaker nodded, knowing that the mansion's legacy would continue in the hearts of all who had been touched by its story. The piano's forgotten tune had become a timeless melody, carried on by the generations to come. After the stranger's final visit, the mansion seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The once eerie halls were now filled with warmth and tranquility. It was as though the house itself had been waiting for this moment of closure. The piano, its keys still, had become a symbol of peace. The haunting melody was no longer a curse, but a cherished memory. The caretaker continued his work, but there was a subtle change in the air. The mansion, which had once whispered of ghostly tales and sorrow, now echoed with the sounds of joy and creativity. Musicians, inspired by the piano's history, came from far and wide to play. The mansion had transformed from a place of fear into a sanctuary for those seeking solace in music. Years went by, and the mansion remained a place of peace, but the legacy of the haunted piano lived on. It became a pilgrimage for musicians, historians, and dreamers alike. Each person who visited could feel the weight of the stories woven into its walls, but they also felt the joy that came from the music. The piano had become a living part of the mansion. Its history was forever tied to those who played it. One day, a young composer arrived at the mansion, his eyes filled with wonder. He had heard the legend of the haunted piano and wanted to experience its magic for himself. As he sat down at the piano, the room seemed to hold its breath. The first note he played was soft, almost tentative, but as his fingers danced across the keys, the room seemed to come alive. The music, flowing effortlessly, was not just his own. It felt as if it had been waiting for him. The young composer's music carried with it a piece of Clara's original tune. It was subtle at first, but the more he played, the more it became apparent. The melody, though forgotten by many, was still alive, waiting to be rediscovered by those with the heart to hear it. The composer felt a deep connection to the piano, as though it had chosen him to carry its legacy forward. As the final note of his piece echoed through the hall, the composer stood up and looked around. He could feel the spirits of Clara and Ethan watching over him, their presence reassuring. The music, now complete, was a bridge between the past and present. The composer knew that he had not just played a song, he had awakened a memory that would live on in the hearts of those who followed. The legend of the haunted piano continued to inspire many, but it was no longer a tale of terror. It had transformed into a story of rebirth and remembrance. The spirits of Clara and Ethan had found peace, and their music lived on through the hands of those who played the piano. The mansion had become a beacon of hope, a place where the past and present intertwined through the power of music. The caretaker, now an old man, stood in the grand hall one evening, listening to the soft strains of the piano. He knew that the mansion's story was far from over. It would continue to be a home for the music that had begun so long ago. As he looked at the piano, he felt a sense of gratitude. The haunting tune, once a curse, had become a gift that kept on giving, forever echoing through time. With time, the mansion became a symbol of endurance. It stood strong, weathering storms and seasons, as the music continued to play. The piano, its keys polished and loved, had become a timeless part of the house, a reflection of all those who had come to hear its song. The mansion's walls had absorbed every note, every whisper, every secret, and now they were a part of the music itself. People would come, play, and leave, but the music stayed. It never stopped, for the piano had found its rightful place in the hearts of many. The once forgotten tune had become a symphony of memories, woven through time, never to be silenced. The mansion, once a place of sorrow, was now a place where music healed, connected, and inspired. The legacy of Clara and Ethan would live on forever, as long as the music continued to play. On a quiet evening, the caretaker closed the mansion's doors for the final time. He had lived a long life, and the mansion had been his home. As he walked through the halls one last time, he could hear the faint sound of the piano, as though it was saying goodbye. He made his way to the grand hall, where the piano stood, now silent and still. In that moment, he understood. The music had come full circle. The piano had told its story, and now it was time for it to rest. As he gently closed the lid of the piano, he felt a peace he had never known before. The melody of the haunted piano had played its final note, but its memory would live on forever, in the hearts of those who had heard its song. Years passed, and the mansion stood still, its walls holding memories of a time long gone. But deep inside the grand hall, the piano remained, untouched by time. The caretaker, now a ghost of his former self, wandered through the rooms one final time. He was old and frail, but his heart was at peace. He had seen the mansion through its darkest days, and now, as the music played no more, he knew it was time to let go. As he sat down in the quiet hall, a strange feeling filled the room. The air seemed to hum with energy, as though the spirits of the past were still present, watching over the piano. The caretaker closed his eyes and listened closely, and for a moment, just a fleeting moment, he heard the faintest echo of a familiar tune. It was as if the piano, though silent for so long, still remembered the song that had once haunted its keys. The caretaker's heart swelled with emotion as the tune filled the air. It wasn't as clear as before, but it was there the same haunting melody that had once captivated everyone who heard it. He stood up slowly, drawn to the piano, as if guided by an unseen hand. His fingers brushed the keys gently, and for a moment he thought he might be playing again. But no, it wasn't him. It was the spirits of Clara and Ethan, together once more. The music rose and fell, delicate and powerful, filling the room with its bittersweet beauty. It was their song, a song of love, loss, and the passage of time. The caretaker felt the weight of the music, and as the last note faded into the silence, he realized something profound: the music would never truly end. It would live on, in the hearts of those who had been touched by it. After the caretaker's passing, the mansion remained in the hands of the stranger's family. They had heard the stories of the haunted piano, and they understood the importance of its legacy. The mansion, now restored to its former glory, became a museum, a place where visitors could come to hear the stories of Clara, Ethan, and the piano that had bound their lives together. Musicians continued to visit, each one playing a piece of the forgotten tune. Some could hear the full melody, while others could only catch glimpses of it. But the piano's magic was real, and its music still had the power to touch the soul. It was as if the spirits of Clara and Ethan were guiding the hands of every player, ensuring the music would never fade away. As the years went by, the mansion became known far and wide for its haunted piano. It drew crowds from every corner of the world, and each person who played it left with a sense of awe and wonder. The tune, though not always the same, was always present. The piano seemed to speak to each person in a unique way, as if it understood their deepest thoughts and emotions. The young composer who had first discovered the piano's magic returned to the mansion every year. He had written symphonies inspired by the haunting melody, and each one seemed to capture the essence of the piano's song. The mansion had become a place of pilgrimage, where music and memories came together in perfect harmony. And in that harmony, the forgotten tune lived on, never to be forgotten again. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a new pianist arrived at the mansion. She was young, just starting her journey in the world of music, but there was something special about her. She had heard the story of the haunted piano and knew she had to play it. As she sat at the keys, the room seemed to hold its breath. The young pianist's hands moved across the keys effortlessly, and the music that filled the hall was unlike anything anyone had ever heard. It was as if the piano itself had come to life, responding to the pianist's touch with a brilliance that had never been seen before. The music was powerful and pure, a reflection of the spirits that had once lived within the walls of the mansion. It was the forgotten tune, but now it was complete, a song that would echo through eternity. The mansion, now a place of peace and creativity, stood tall against the winds of time. The piano, its keys still polished and its music still echoing, remained the heart of the house. Clara and Ethan's spirits had long since moved on, but their story, their music, had lived on forever. The mansion was no longer haunted by sorrow. Instead, it was filled with the light of creation, the laughter of those who had been touched by its magic. As the final note of the piano rang out one last time, the house seemed to settle into a deep, contented sleep. The caretaker, though long gone, had watched over the mansion for his final time. The spirits of the piano had been set free, and their music would live on, not as a haunting tune, but as a song of hope, love, and remembrance. And in the hearts of all who had played its keys, the melody would never fade. Years had passed, and the mansion's fame only grew, The piano, now a symbol of history and emotion, was celebrated by everyone who visited. Some came seeking fame, others came searching for inspiration, but all left with a piece of the haunting tune within them. Musicians from all walks of life played its keys, leaving their own marks on the melody. The tune had become a journey of its own. What began as a lonely, haunting cry had evolved into a song of unity, bringing people together through its beauty and mystery. Clara and Ethan's story was no longer just their own, it belonged to the world. The piano had transformed into a bridge, connecting generations through the universal language of music. Each note was a whisper from the past, echoing into the future. The mansion became more than just a museum, it was a place of learning and creativity. Music schools began to send their students to the mansion, eager to study the piano and learn from its history. The notes played on that haunted instrument inspired countless compositions, all of which carried a piece of Clara and Ethan's legacy. The forgotten tune had found its place in the heart of the world's music community. One day, an old woman visited the mansion. She had once been a student of Clara's, and the music from the piano brought tears to her eyes. She remembered Clara's love for music, her passion for teaching, and how she had passed on her knowledge to others. As the woman played the piano, the haunting melody filled the air once more, and for a brief moment, it was as if Clara herself had returned to guide the music. For the first time in many years, the spirits of Clara and Ethan seemed to manifest within the walls of the mansion. They were not seen, but their presence was felt by all who entered. Musicians spoke of an inexplicable warmth and comfort that enveloped them as they played the piano. The haunting, once associated with sadness and loss, had transformed into a blessing. It was as if Clara and Ethan had found peace, knowing their love and their song would continue for generations to come. The mansion, now a sacred place for music, had become their final resting place. No longer a place of fear, it had become a haven for artists and dreamers, a place where the past and present danced together in harmony. The spirits no longer whispered of sorrow instead. They sang of love, unity, and the eternal power of music. The mansion, still alive with music, stood through the ages as a testament to the power of a song. The piano's keys continued to sing the forgotten tune, played by those who understood its significance. The melody had no end, no final note. It was an ongoing symphony, continuously evolving as it passed from one player to the next. Even those who never set foot in the mansion felt the echoes of the tune in their hearts. It spread across the world, touching countless lives. The song was no longer just a part of Clara and Ethan's love story. It was part of everyone's story. The music had transcended time, becoming something far greater than anyone had imagined. The tune, once forgotten, had become a universal symbol of connection and love. As the years went on, the piano's influence grew even more. Music festivals were held in its honor, and musicians from across the globe gathered to celebrate its legacy. The once eerie, haunted sound had transformed into a harmonious anthem of the world, resonating with people from all walks of life. In a way, the piano had come full circle. What began as a tale of loss, tragedy, and haunting had blossomed into a story of healing, inspiration, and global unity. Every time a new player sat before its keys, the spirit of Clara and Ethan seemed to join them, guiding them to create something beautiful. The music no longer belonged to the mansion, it had become part of the world's soul. One evening, as the last light of the day faded from the sky, the piano played its final note. It wasn't a loud, grand sound, but a soft, perfect conclusion to the song that had filled the mansion for so many years. The air was still, and for the first time in a long time, the mansion fell silent. Clara and Ethan's spirits had finally found their rest. The music had come full circle. The haunting tune, once lost and forgotten, had been reborn, and its echoes would live on in the hearts of those who had been touched by it. As the mansion stood silent in the twilight, its legacy was secure. The song would never truly end, it would live forever, a reminder that love, music, and memories never fade. Years later, a young man arrived at the mansion. He had heard whispers of the haunted piano from his grandmother, who had once visited the mansion many decades ago. His grandmother had told him the stories of the forgotten tune, and he had always dreamed of hearing it himself. Now, standing in the grand hall, he could feel the weight of the history around him. As he approached the piano, a sense of calm washed over him. He sat down slowly, his fingers hovering above the keys. The mansion seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for him to play. The music had always been passed down to those who truly understood it, and he felt a deep connection to the spirits of Clara and Ethan. With a single press of a key, the first note of the forgotten tune echoed through the room. As the young man played, the melody began to flow through him. It was as if the piano itself was guiding his hands, pulling the notes from his heart. With every key he pressed, the room seemed to come alive. The air shimmered with energy, and the once distant spirits of Clara and Ethan seemed to surround him. The tune filled the hall, louder and clearer than ever before. He could feel the magic of the melody, its power to connect past and present, love and loss. The music was not just a song, it was a journey through time. With each passing note, the young man realized he wasn't just playing a piece of music, he was reliving the story of Clara and Ethan. The forgotten tune was no longer a haunting memory, it was a living, breathing testament to love and music. As the final notes of the melody hung in the air, the young man stopped playing. He sat back, his heart racing. He had never experienced anything like this before. It was as if the piano had opened a door to the past, allowing him to witness the love, the heartache, and the beauty that had once filled the mansion. He could almost see Clara and Ethan standing beside him, their love still as strong as ever. He realized that the tune wasn't just a song, it was a story told through music. A story of two souls, bound together by love and loss, who had left their mark on the world. The piano had been their voice, and now it was his. As the music faded away, the young man knew he would never forget the experience. The forgotten tune had found its way into his soul, and he would carry it with him for the rest of his life. The young man left the mansion with a heart full of memories. He had come seeking the forgotten tune, but he had found something far greater. The legacy of Clara and Ethan was not just in the music they had created, it was in the love that had inspired it. The mansion, the piano, and the song were all symbols of their enduring bond. As he walked away from the mansion, the young man knew that he had become part of the story. The forgotten tune would live on, passed down to those who were ready to hear it. The spirits of Clara and Ethan had finally found peace, knowing that their love would never be forgotten. Their story had been shared with the world, and it would continue to inspire generations to come. The mansion, once silent, had become a place of pilgrimage for music lovers and history enthusiasts. People came from all over the world to hear the haunting melody of the piano. Some came to learn, others to experience the magic, but all left with the feeling that they had encountered something truly special. The music had become timeless, transcending borders and generations. The forgotten tune had found its place in the hearts of many, and it lived on in every note that was played. Musicians who had once struggled to find their own voice now found inspiration in the song. The legacy of Clara and Ethan was carried on through their music, and their love became an eternal force that continued to shape the world. The piano, though aged and worn, stood as a beacon of hope and creativity, as its song would never fade. And so, the mansion stood, a monument to love, music, and the forgotten tune. As the sun set each day, the sound of the piano's keys could still be heard, a soft echo of the past, carried on the wind. The spirits of Clara and Ethan had long since passed on, but their song remained. The piano had become a symbol of eternal love, a reminder that even the darkest moments could give birth to something beautiful. The forgotten tune, once lost, had found its way back into the world, and it would continue to echo for as long as the mansion stood. The music was eternal, as was the love that had inspired it. And in the hearts of those who had been touched by its melody, the song would never be forgotten. Years passed, and the mansion continued to thrive as a symbol of hope and creativity. People from all walks of life came to visit, drawn by the haunting yet beautiful melody that echoed through its halls. Some came to hear the forgotten tune, while others sought inspiration for their own music. Every note played on the piano carried with it the story of Clara and Ethan, a love that transcended time. But as time went on, the mansion began to change. The once quiet halls, filled with the ghosts of the past, now buzzed with activity. Musicians, artists, and dreamers filled the space, bringing new life to the mansion that had once been filled with sorrow. The piano, once a relic of a forgotten past, had become a tool for the future. It was a place where music was born and where the magic of the forgotten tune continued to inspire. One day, a young composer named Mia arrived at the mansion. She had heard of the haunted piano and its legendary tune, and she had come to discover it for herself. Sitting before the piano, Mia closed her eyes and let her fingers drift over the keys. She didn't know what to expect, but she felt a deep connection to the piano, as though it was calling her. As she played, a new melody began to form. It wasn't the same as the forgotten tune, but it was inspired by it. The music flowed through her like a river, each note carrying the emotion and beauty of Clara and Ethan's love. The haunting melody was still there, but it had evolved, becoming something new, something that belonged to the future. Mia realized that the forgotten tune was not just a piece of music, it was a living entity, constantly evolving and inspiring those who played it. As Mia played the new song, she began to notice something strange. The air around her seemed to shimmer, and a soft, gentle presence filled the room. It was as though Clara and Ethan were watching over her, guiding her hands as she played. The more she played, the stronger the connection grew. She could feel the love, the passion, and the pain that had once filled the mansion. Mia's music became a bridge between the past and the present. Every note she played was a conversation with the spirits who had lived and loved within these walls. She realized that she was not just playing a song, she was continuing the legacy of Clara and Ethan. The piano, the mansion, and the melody were all part of a larger story, one that she was now a part of, and in that moment Mia understood that the song would never end. It would live on, forever intertwined with the souls of those who had loved it. As the months passed, Mia continued to visit the mansion, playing the piano and composing new pieces inspired by the forgotten tune. One day, As she sat before the piano, something extraordinary happened. The haunting melody, the one that had been lost for so many years, began to emerge once again. It started softly, just a few notes, but soon it grew, filling the room with its familiar sound. Mia's fingers moved across the keys as if they were guided by an unseen force. The forgotten tune had returned, but it was different now. It was no longer a lonely, sorrowful cry. It had been transformed into something richer, fuller. It was a celebration of life, of love, and of the power of music. The spirits of Clara and Ethan had breathed new life into the melody, and it was now a song of hope and renewal. The mansion had become a place of pilgrimage once more. People came from all over to hear the forgotten tune, now reborn and more beautiful than ever. Musicians, artists, and dreamers all gathered to witness the magic that had been passed down through the generations. The mansion was no longer just a place of the past. It had become a beacon of creativity, where new music was born, inspired by the love and legacy of Clara and Ethan. Mia's compositions, inspired by the forgotten tune, were played across the world. The song that had once haunted the mansion had now become a symbol of hope, unity, and the enduring power of love. Clara and Ethan's love story had transcended time, and their music had become a part of the world's soul. Their spirits, forever intertwined with the melody, had found their place in the hearts of all who heard it. As the years went on, the mansion continued to stand as a testament to the power of music and love. The piano, though weathered with time, still played the forgotten tune, now heard by those who visited from far and wide. The mansion's halls, once filled with sorrow, now echoed with the sound of laughter and joy. And though Clara and Ethan's spirits had long since moved on, their love and music lived on in every note that was played. The forgotten tune, once lost to time, had become a song of the future, a melody that would never fade. It had become part of the world's heartbeat, a reminder that love and music could transcend even the darkest of times. And as the last note of the piano rang out, the legacy of Clara and Ethan was sealed forever in the hearts of all who heard their song. Years passed, and the mansion continued to thrive as a center for artists and musicians alike. People came and went, but the hauntingly beautiful melody of the forgotten tune never ceased to inspire. It seemed as though time had no hold on the mansion, for the music still carried the same power and emotion that it had when Clara and Ethan first played it. The piano had become an eternal part of the mansion's soul, and the melody, now cherished by many, lived on forever. The legacy of the piano reached beyond the mansion's walls. The song was played in concert halls, heard in music schools, and even shared across radio stations. It became a symbol of hope for those who sought inspiration, a reminder of the beauty that love could create. And in every performance, the spirits of Clara and Ethan seemed to stand beside the performers, smiling quietly as their love lived on through the music. One evening, Mia sat alone at the piano, reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this point. She had been part of something truly magical, something that transcended the boundaries of time. As her fingers touched the keys, she felt the presence of Clara and Ethan, their love still filling the air around her. The piano was no longer just a piece of furniture, it was a living entity, imbued with the passion and sorrow of its past. Mia closed her eyes and began to play the forgotten tune once more. It wasn't just the melody that she played, it was the story, the love story that had been passed down from generation to generation. Each note carried with it a history, a memory, and a promise. The music flowed effortlessly, as if the piano itself was sharing the emotions of Clara and Ethan, keeping their love alive in every chord. And as the last note echoed through the room, Mia knew that the music would never fade. As word spread of the rebirth of the forgotten tune, more and more visitors came to the mansion. Some came to hear the legendary melody, while others simply sought to be in the presence of the magic that surrounded the place. Each visitor, regardless of their background, felt the same connection to the piano, as if they were all part of the same shared experience. It was as if the mansion had become a sanctuary for the soul, a place where love, music, and history converged. Those who entered its doors could not help but be moved by the profound energy that filled the air. And in every note played on the piano, Clara and Ethan's love was felt once more. It was no longer just a haunted mansion, it was a place where memories lived and love never died. The forgotten tune had become more than just a piece of music, it had become a symbol of the connection between generations, cultures, and souls. It inspired a new era of musicians who were drawn to its beauty. Young composers, eager to add their own voice to the world, sat at the piano and added their own interpretations of the melody. Each new version, while unique, still carried the spirit of the original song. The music had evolved, just as Clara and Ethan's love had. It had become something universal, something that transcended the limits of time. As the new era of musicians continued to build upon the forgotten tune, the mansion stood as a beacon for all who sought inspiration. And in the heart of the mansion, the piano continued to play, its haunting melody forever echoing through the halls, reminding all who listened that love and music were forever intertwined. Mia, now an accomplished composer, was invited to perform in concert halls around the world. Yet, she always returned to the mansion, to the piano that had changed her life. She had become the keeper of the forgotten tune, the one who had brought it back to life for the world to hear. But she knew that her role was not just to play the music, it was to carry the spirit of Clara and Ethan, to ensure that their love was never forgotten. One evening, as Mia played, she felt a new sense of peace. The piano had given her a gift, the ability to bring people together through music. And with every performance, she honored Clara and Ethan, knowing that their love would continue to touch the lives of all who heard the forgotten tune. Mia's gift was not just in her ability to play the piano, it was in her ability to pass on the legacy of love that had been passed to her. The mansion, now a renowned sanctuary for music lovers, was preparing for its final performance. Mia had been invited to perform one last time before the mansion was closed for restoration. As she sat at the piano, she felt the weight of the history surrounding her. This performance was more than just a concert, it was a celebration of love, music, and the forgotten tune that had brought them all together. The hall was packed with eager listeners, each person waiting to hear the melody that had captured their hearts. As Mia's fingers touched the keys, the familiar notes of the forgotten tune filled the room. The audience sat in rapt attention as the music spoke to them in a language beyond words. The performance was perfect. Each note played with the same passion and emotion that Clara and Ethan had poured into it so many years ago. And as the last note faded into silence, Mia knew that this was not the end. The music would live on, echoing through the hearts of all who had heard it. The forgotten tune, once lost to time, had become eternal, and its legacy would never fade. The performance marked a new beginning for the mansion and its piano. It had touched the hearts of countless individuals, and now it stood as a symbol of hope and unity. People came from all over the world, not just to hear the music, but to experience the magic that had been woven into the very walls of the mansion. The piano had become a living testament to the power of love, music, and the human spirit. As Mia left the stage for the final time, she passed by the piano with a sense of fulfillment. She knew her time with the instrument was coming to an end, but the legacy she had helped to create would live on for generations. The mansion, once dark and forgotten, was now a beacon of light, inviting anyone with an open heart to experience the magic that had once been lost. The piano, with its beautiful and haunting melody, would continue to inspire long after Mia had gone. The mansion, now restored and thriving, had become a place where music lovers and history enthusiasts gathered to pay tribute to the forgotten tune. Its walls were adorned with photographs of Clara and Ethan, their love story immortalized for all to see. Visitors often shared stories of how the piano had changed their lives, just as it had done for Mia. It was no longer a haunted mansion, but a sanctuary where music filled the air and love lingered in every corner. Mia, now much older, returned to the mansion one last time. She sat at the piano, placing her hands on the keys. The music that once brought her comfort and inspiration now filled her with peace. She knew that it was time to let go, to pass the mantle to someone else. With a final, soft note, she stood up, leaving the piano in the care of the mansion, confident that it would continue to carry the forgotten tune for years to come. Years passed, but the piano's melody never faded. It continued to play, even when no one was there to touch the keys. It became clear that the piano was not just an instrument, but a conduit for the emotions of Clara and Ethan, whose love had transcended time. The tune that had once been forgotten now echoed through the mansion, a reminder of the love that had given it life. New musicians arrived, eager to play the piano and uncover its magic. Each one, after hearing the melody, left the mansion with a newfound understanding of love and loss. The piano had become more than just a part of the mansion, it had become a living entity, connecting the past to the present, linking the hearts of all who heard its hauntingly beautiful song. The tune was no longer forgotten, but immortal. The mansion became a popular destination, with many travelers coming to experience the piano's melody. Each visitor had their own unique story of how the music had touched their lives. Some were musicians, others were artists, and some were simply people in search of something greater. No matter who they were, they all left with the same sense of wonder and inspiration. One visitor, a young pianist named Lucas, shared his story of how the melody had guided him through his darkest days. He had been struggling with the loss of a loved one and had felt disconnected from the world. But when he sat at the piano and played the forgotten tune, he felt as if the spirits of Clara and Ethan were with him, offering solace and guidance. His performance was unlike any other, and as he finished, the room was filled with an overwhelming sense of peace. One stormy night, a group of musicians gathered in the mansion's grand hall to pay tribute to the piano. The air was thick with tension as they waited for the piano to play its tune. The musicians had heard the stories, but they wanted to experience the magic for themselves. As they began to play, the piano seemed to come to life. Its keys moved of their own accord, creating the haunting melody that had become so legendary. It was clear that the piano held something more than just notes and chords. It held the spirit of love, loss, and longing. Those who played it could feel its energy, as if it was guiding their hands and emotions. The musicians played for hours, each performance more powerful than the last. It was as though the piano had become a living, breathing entity, channeling the emotions of the past and transforming them into something timeless. The mansion, with its piano at the heart of it all, had become a place of pilgrimage for those seeking inspiration. Its legacy had spread far and wide, and the forgotten tune was no longer a lost memory. It had become a symbol of hope, a reminder that love could transcend time and space. Clara and Ethan's love, once buried beneath layers of dust and silence, now lived on in the music, in the hearts of all who heard it. As the years continued to pass, the mansion remained a testament to the power of love and music. It stood as a living memory of a time long past, but its message remained clear: love, once given, can never truly be forgotten. The tune, though it had once been lost, would continue to play, forever echoing through the hearts of all who heard it. The forgotten tune of the haunted piano had become a timeless melody, its legacy eternal. One winter's night, the mansion experienced a strange phenomenon. The grand hall, usually filled with visitors, stood empty, as if the world outside had forgotten it entirely. Yet, through the silence, a faint sound echoed, soft, barely audible at first, but growing louder. It was the piano. The haunting melody that had been dormant for so long began to play, as if on its own, filling the mansion with a sense of mystery and wonder. The sound was different this time. There was a warmth in the notes, as though the piano had absorbed the love and stories of those who had visited it over the years. It played as if to reassure the mansion and all who had found solace there, that it was never truly abandoned. The music told a story of hope, of memories that could not fade, and of a connection that spanned generations. The melody continued into the night, flowing through the halls like a river of sound. Those who had once been afraid of the piano now listened intently, drawn to its captivating tune. The music filled them with a sense of belonging, as if they had been part of the mansion's story all along. It was no longer just the melody of Clara and Ethan, it was the song of every soul that had crossed the mansion's threshold. Outside the mansion, the world was still, and the snow gently fell, covering the land in a blanket of white. But inside, the piano's melody brought warmth. It was as though the mansion itself had come alive once again, responding to the music that was now the lifeblood of its very being. The story of the haunted piano, once lost to time, had transformed into a living legacy. And as long as the music played, the mansion would never truly be forgotten. As the years passed, the mansion's story became a legend. People traveled from far and wide, guided by the music that had begun to echo across the land. Each visitor had their own journey, their own reason for seeking out the piano. Some came searching for inspiration, others for closure, and some simply to listen to the forgotten tune that had become a symbol of healing. Each visitor who sat at the piano felt the weight of the past and the love that had once filled the halls. It was as if the piano absorbed their emotions, weaving their stories into its song. The tune, now familiar and beloved, played for each visitor in a different way, speaking directly to their heart. The mansion had become a sacred place, a space where past and present intertwined, and where the music never stopped. The mansion was no longer just a place, it had become a living memory of Clara, Ethan, and the many who had come before. Its halls were filled with the whispers of those who had passed, their voices carried by the wind, the walls, and the piano. And as the music played, it offered something more: an invitation for anyone who needed it. One evening, a young girl named Lily visited the mansion. She had heard stories of the haunted piano and was drawn to the promise of healing within its walls. Sitting at the piano, Lily placed her fingers on the keys, and to her amazement, the melody began once again. But this time it felt different, it felt like a gift. The music flowed through her, not as a haunting reminder of loss, but as a song of strength and hope for the future. After Lily's visit, the mansion experienced a profound change. The piano, having played its melody for so long, was finally still. It had given all it could, offering its tune to the world, and in return, receiving love and remembrance. The mansion, too, had transformed. What was once a place of darkness and mystery had become a beacon of light, a monument to the enduring power of love and memory. The last note that rang out from the piano was soft but filled with finality. It was a note of peace, of closure. And though the piano was silent, its music lived on in the hearts of those who had heard it, in the stories shared, and in the memories that would never fade. The mansion would always stand as a symbol of the magic that love can create, and how music, once forgotten, can return to heal the soul. Years turned to decades, and the mansion continued to stand, as beautiful and mysterious as ever. The piano, though silent, had left an indelible mark on all who had heard its tune. It had become a symbol of the mansion itself, of lost love, of healing, and of the power of music to touch the soul. Visitors still came, not just for the stories, but for the feeling they experienced in the presence of the piano. The legacy of Clara and Ethan, of the forgotten tune, had endured, and the mansion stood as a reminder that some melodies, though lost, will always find a way to be heard. The piano's legacy would live on, forever echoing through the halls of the mansion, a tune that would never be forgotten. The mansion, now a place of pilgrimage for many, stood with its old charm, even as time passed. But there were whispers that the piano might play again, that the melody would return when least expected. No one knew when, but deep in their hearts, they believed that the music would find its way back, as if it had a life of its own. And indeed, one quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the first note rang out from the piano. It was soft at first, like the breath of an old friend returning after a long absence. The sound stirred memories in the hearts of those who had visited before, filling the mansion with a sense of anticipation. People gathered near the piano, watching, waiting, as if they had been part of the music all along. The melody was back, carrying with it the essence of every visitor who had ever sat at its keys. As the music played once again, something extraordinary happened. The mansion seemed to change, its old walls absorbing the sound, as if they too were waking up. Each note seemed to tell a different story, some joyful, some sorrowful, but all filled with meaning. The piano had become more than just an instrument. It was now the keeper of every soul who had entered the mansion, holding their emotions within its strings. Clara and Ethan's story, once lost to time, was no longer just a memory. The piano had kept their love alive, and now it was sharing that love with the world. It was a secret that the mansion had held for so long, the power of music to heal, to remember, and to connect the past with the present. The mansion was alive with the echoes of the forgotten tune, and its legacy would never fade. The tune continued to play, now as a part of the mansion's soul. Those who visited could feel its magic, a presence that reached deep into their hearts. The music wasn't just for the ears, it was for the spirit. Every person who came to listen felt a connection to the past, as though they had been part of the mansion's story all along. No longer just a haunted relic of forgotten times, the mansion had become a place of peace. It was a living testament to the power of memory and love, and the piano had become its heartbeat. With every visitor, the melody shifted, telling new stories, offering new healing. And so, the mansion stood, filled with music that would never stop. Some people believed that the piano had magical properties, that it could heal the brokenhearted or guide those who were lost. Over time, it became known as a place of refuge. People from all walks of life came to the mansion, some seeking solace, others seeking answers. Each time they played, the music spoke to them, offering comfort in ways they couldn't explain. One day, a young man named Jacob entered the mansion. His heart was heavy with sorrow, his life a mess of broken dreams. But as he sat at the piano and let his fingers touch the keys, something miraculous happened. The melody seemed to wrap around him, lifting the weight from his soul. It was as if the piano had known his pain and was offering him a way to heal. The story of the haunted piano had reached far and wide, but its true magic lay in the healing it provided. Jacob, like many others, had left the mansion with a heart lighter than when he arrived. The music had given him clarity, and with that, he had found a new direction in life. The mansion had not just been a place of memories, it had been a place of transformation. As the years passed, more and more people came to find their peace in the mansion. Some came to witness the piano's magic, while others came simply to be in its presence. No one could explain it, but all who had experienced it knew one thing for sure: the piano was no longer just haunted, it was a guide, a source of strength for those in need. The mansion, now more than just a home, had become a sanctuary. Its halls were filled with laughter, with tears, and with memories of those who had passed through its doors. The piano's melody, once forgotten, now filled every corner of the mansion with light and love. It was a song that would never end, playing for anyone who needed it, whether they were looking for healing, inspiration, or simply a moment of peace. And as the music continued, the mansion stood proudly, a place where the past and present met, where stories were told, and where the forgotten tune played on. It would never be silenced, for its melody was eternal, woven into the fabric of the mansion itself. The legacy of the piano lived on, a testament to the power of music, memory, and the love that could never be forgotten. As the years rolled by, the mansion became more than just a destination, it became a haven. Travelers from all over the world visited, bringing with them their own stories, their own burdens. Each person who sat at the piano left something behind, a piece of themselves in the music. The piano had a way of capturing their essence, transforming their sorrow into song, their joy into melody. One evening, a small group of musicians came to the mansion, eager to see the legendary piano. When they played, the piano responded in a way they had never experienced before. It wasn't just an instrument, it was as if the piano itself had become a musician, guiding their hands, showing them how to play a tune they had never known. The group left the mansion with their hearts full, carrying the magic of the piano with them. Many believed that the piano was more than just a piece of furniture, it was the home of Clara's spirit. The young woman whose love had been woven into the very strings of the instrument. It was said that on the rarest of nights, Clara's presence could be felt in the mansion, her gentle touch guiding the music. She had become a part of the piano, and the piano had become a part of her. On one such night, as the wind howled through the old windows, a soft voice whispered through the air. It was Clara. As the melody played, the room seemed to glow with her presence, and the mansion's halls filled with the warmth of her love. For those who were there, it was a moment they would never forget. The spirit of Clara, once lost in the pages of time, had returned to guide the piano's song once more. The mansion had long since become known for its piano, and one evening, a grand concert was held in its honor. Musicians from around the world gathered to celebrate the haunted piano, each one eager to add their own voice to the symphony that had been born from its keys. The night was filled with music, laughter, and tears as the mansion came alive with the sounds of the past and present merging into a beautiful harmony. As the concert reached its peak, the piano began to play on its own, as if it had waited for this moment. The musicians paused, watching in awe as the piano brought together every note they had played into one perfect melody. The room was filled with magic, and for that one night, the mansion stood as a living testament to the power of music to unite and heal. After the concert, many wondered about the true nature of the piano. How had it gained such power, such influence over the hearts of those who came to it? Some believed it held the secret of eternal love. Others thought it contained the whispers of those who had passed. But no one truly knew the piano's secret except for the mansion itself. The mansion, old and wise, had seen countless souls come and go. It had witnessed the love between Clara and Ethan and the sorrow that followed. It had seen generations pass, yet the piano had never stopped singing its tune. It was the keeper of memories, the silent witness to the joy and pain of all who had entered. And as long as the music played, the mansion would never truly be alone. One fateful evening, the mansion was quieter than it had ever been. The piano, having played its haunting tune for decades, seemed to sense that its time had come. The mansion stood still, as if holding its breath, waiting for the final note to ring out. And then, with a gentle touch, the last note was played. It was soft, like the closing of a door, but it resonated through the air, filling the mansion with a sense of peace. The silence that followed was not empty, it was full of everything the piano had ever given. The music had come to an end, but its legacy lived on. The mansion would continue to stand, a monument to the stories told and the lives touched by the piano's melody. It was as though the piano had known that it had given all it could, and now it could rest. But its song, its magic, would never truly be forgotten. Though the piano was silent, its influence remained. The mansion continued to welcome visitors, each one drawn by the stories of the haunted piano and the music that had once filled its halls. The piano's legacy lived on in the hearts of those who had listened, who had been touched by its song. It had become a symbol of love, memory, and healing, transcending time and space. And so, the mansion stood, its story written in the music that would never fade. The forgotten tune, once lost, had found its place in the world once more. It had reminded everyone who had heard it that even the most haunting of melodies could be beautiful, and that the power of music to heal, to connect, and to inspire would never be lost. The piano had played its final note, but its story was far from over. Years passed, and the mansion's reputation grew. It became a place that many visited, not just for its beauty, but for the magic that still lingered in the air. People returned, not just to admire the mansion's architecture, but to experience the peace that the piano's melody had given. It was no longer just a haunted place, it had transformed into a sanctuary for the soul. As the visitors gathered once more around the piano, the air was filled with anticipation. Some sat silently, others played their own music, waiting for the piano to respond. And just as before, the old keys began to hum with life. The melody, though different each time, carried the same soothing magic. The visitors, once strangers, were now bound by the same unspoken connection the piano's music had united them all. There were whispers among the visitors that the piano's song had changed. What was once a sorrowful and eerie tune had now become a melody of hope, of love, and of new beginnings. The haunting notes that had once made the mansion a place of mystery were now a source of comfort. The piano had been reborn, its sound reflecting the love and healing it had witnessed throughout the years. On one particular evening, a gentle rain began to fall as the piano played, its melody blending perfectly with the sound of raindrops on the roof. The mansion, filled with the warmth of those who gathered, seemed to glow under the dim lights. The once dark and foreboding place was now filled with an undeniable sense of peace, as if the piano had cast a spell of serenity over the entire building. It wasn't just the piano's music that had changed, the mansion itself had transformed. The once eerie halls now radiated with warmth, and the rooms seemed to hold an energy that was both calming and invigorating. Visitors came to the mansion not only to hear the piano, but to experience the healing power that seemed to fill every corner. One day, a young woman named Amelia entered the mansion, her heart burdened with grief. She had lost her parents years ago, and the weight of their absence had haunted her for as long as she could remember. But as she sat by the piano, the music began to play. It was gentle at first, like a comforting embrace, and soon she found herself letting go of the pain she had carried for so long. The piano had healed her, just as it had healed so many before her. As time passed, the mansion continued to attract visitors, but there was a feeling in the air that the end was near. The piano, having played for so many years, seemed to be slowing down. Its melodies, once full of life, were now faint, as if it had given everything it could. On one final visit, a small group gathered in the mansion's grand hall, waiting for the piano to play. They had come to honor the piano, knowing that it would no longer sing its sweet tunes for them. The air was thick with anticipation as the piano keys were gently touched, but there was no response. For the first time in years, the mansion was silent. But the silence was not empty, it was full of everything the piano had ever given. The people in the room sat quietly, allowing the stillness to wash over them. The music had come to an end, but its impact would live on forever in their hearts. The silence in the room felt profound, but just as the visitors were about to leave, a single note rang out from the piano. It was clear and strong, a note that seemed to echo through time. The room held its breath as the note faded, leaving behind a feeling of peace and completion. The piano had played its final melody, and it had been the most beautiful one yet. It was as though the piano had said everything it needed to say. It had told the stories of love, loss, and healing, and it had given its last gift to the people who had gathered. As the final note lingered in the air, the visitors felt a sense of closure, as though they had been part of something much larger than themselves. The piano had completed its mission. It had brought them all together, and now it could rest. Though the piano had stopped playing, its legacy remained. The mansion was no longer just a place, it was a living memory of the music that had once filled its halls. The stories of the piano, its melodies, and the people it had healed would live on for generations. Visitors still came to the mansion, not to hear the music, but to remember it. They came to reflect, to find peace, and to honor the piano's memory. The mansion, now filled with the echoes of the past, continued to stand as a symbol of the power of music and the healing it could bring. The forgotten tune of the haunted piano would never truly be forgotten. It would live on in the hearts of all who had experienced it. Years after the piano's final melody, the mansion remained a place of pilgrimage for those seeking comfort. It had become a sanctuary, a place where memories of the past could be honored. But the mansion also needed caretakers, people who understood its magic and would protect its legacy. Among the new guardians of the mansion were young musicians, each with a story of their own. They felt a deep connection to the piano, even though it no longer played. They believed that the music still lived within the walls, waiting for someone to listen. The guardians, though unable to hear the piano's song, could feel its presence every time they entered. It was as if the very air held the notes of a song long forgotten, but never truly gone. One of the guardians, a young man named Henry, would often sit by the piano, hoping to hear even the faintest of melodies. He believed that the piano still had something to offer, something yet to be discovered. Late one evening, as the full moon illuminated the room, he played a single note on the piano, and for a brief moment he swore he heard a soft echo of the past. The room grew still as the faint sound of the piano filled the air, like a whisper from the past. It wasn't as strong or as clear as before, but it was there. The guardians gathered around, holding their breath, and in that moment they all understood that the piano's music was not gone, it was simply waiting for the right moment to return. The echoes of the past were not to be feared, but cherished. The piano's final melody had taught them an important lesson. Music wasn't just about sound. It was about the emotions it could evoke, the memories it could awaken, and the healing it could bring. The guardians, inspired by the piano's gift, decided to share this understanding with the world. They began hosting gatherings, not to recreate the magic of the piano's song, but to honor it through their own music. Each guardian had a different instrument, and together they played a song for the mansion, blending their sounds into a symphony of memories. The music was different, yet somehow it felt like an extension of the piano's lost tune. The melody was no longer confined to the old keys. It had spread throughout the hearts of those who had been touched by it. The music that filled the mansion's halls had a transformative effect. It brought light to the rooms that had once been filled with shadows and warmth to the cold stone walls. It was as though the mansion itself had come alive, responding to the love and care of its new guardians. One evening, as the music played, something extraordinary happened. The long-forgotten chandelier that hung above the grand hall began to glow, casting a soft light over the entire room. It was as if the mansion was finally showing its appreciation for the guardians' efforts. The once dim corners of the mansion now shimmered with light, and the guardians felt the presence of the piano's spirit watching over them, proud of the legacy they were preserving. The piano, though silent, had given birth to a new kind of music, a music that could never be replicated, but only felt. The guardians understood that they would never hear the original tune again, but they had learned to create something equally powerful in its place. The new melody was a reflection of the mansion's past, its history, and the souls who had come and gone. As they played together, the guardians felt a deep sense of peace. The music wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. It was a tribute to the piano, a tribute to the mansion, and a tribute to the people who had been touched by its magic. The melody echoed through the halls, bringing with it a sense of closure. The mansion was no longer a place of mystery or fear, it was a place of love, of healing, and of music that would live on forever. And so the mansion stood, not as a haunted place, but as a beacon of light and music. Its legacy, once shrouded in mystery, had been transformed into a celebration of life. The guardians continued their music, and though the piano's song had ended, the mansion's story would never fade. People from all over came to visit, not to seek out a ghostly tune, but to experience the living music that now filled the mansion. The memory of the piano's forgotten tune was carried forward in every note played, in every heart touched by its story. The mansion was no longer just a building, it had become a living testament to the power of music, a legacy that would never end. As the years went by, the mansion became known far and wide, not just for its history, but for the whispers that seemed to fill its walls. Those who visited felt a strange connection to the place, as if the mansion itself was speaking to them. Some swore they could hear the faint sound of the piano in the distance, while others felt an unseen presence guiding them through the halls. The guardians, who had become more attuned to the mansion's energy, often spoke of the whispers in reverence. They believed that the mansion was alive, that it had absorbed the stories of all who had passed through its doors. These whispers were not voices of the past, but echoes of all the lives that had been touched by the piano's music. They were reminders that the mansion's legacy would never fade. One day, while exploring the mansion's forgotten corners, one of the guardians, a young woman named Eliza, discovered a hidden door. It had been concealed behind a large tapestry, and no one had ever noticed it before. The door was old, its wood worn and cracked, but it beckoned her forward. As she pushed the door open, a wave of cool air rushed past her, as though the room had been sealed off for centuries. Inside, Eliza found a small, dimly lit room. There was no furniture, just a single dusty sheet covering what appeared to be an object in the center of the room. As she pulled the sheet away, her heart skipped a beat there. Sitting in the middle of the room was a second piano, identical to the one that had once played the haunting tune. It was covered in layers of dust, its keys silent, but Eliza could feel the same powerful energy in the room that had once radiated from the original piano. Eliza couldn't resist the temptation. She gently pressed her fingers onto the keys of the second piano, and at first, nothing happened. Then, as if the mansion itself were guiding her, a soft note rang out. It was faint, but unmistakable. The sound was unlike anything she had ever heard before. It was as if the piano was awakening, just as the original one had so many years ago. As she continued to play, the notes grew stronger, and the room seemed to come alive. The whispers in the mansion grew louder, surrounding her as if they were cheering her on. Eliza played the hidden melody, feeling a deep connection to the music, to the mansion, and to the legacy of the piano. It was the same melody, but there was something new about it, a sense of hope, of new beginnings. It was as though the piano had been waiting for someone to uncover it, to bring it back to life. News of Eliza's discovery spread quickly through the mansion, and the guardians gathered around to witness the hidden piano in action. They too could feel the power in the air, as if the very foundation of the mansion was humming with energy. As Eliza played, the piano's melody filled the room, and the entire mansion seemed to respond. The chandelier flickered, the walls glowed softly, and the air grew warm. It was clear to everyone that this was no ordinary piano. It was a vessel of the mansion's magic, a conduit for the music that had once brought so much peace to the world. The guardians realized that this was the true heart of the mansion, the source of the music that had healed so many. It was not the original piano that had been lost to time, but this one, hidden away, waiting for the right person to unlock its power. With Eliza's discovery, the mansion entered a new era. The hidden piano, once lost to time, became the centerpiece of the mansion's magic. The guardians, along with Eliza, played it every day, sharing its music with all who came to visit. The melody that had been forgotten for so long was now back in full force, stronger and more beautiful than ever. But this time the music was different. It no longer carried the sadness or mystery that had once filled the halls. Instead, it was a song of joy, of rebirth. The mansion was no longer just a place of haunting memories, it was a living, breathing entity filled with light, hope, and harmony. Visitors came from far and wide to hear the music and feel the energy that had been restored to the mansion. As the years passed, the mansion's legacy continued to grow. The hidden piano was no longer a secret, and its music was heard by all who entered. The guardians, who had once only cared for the mansion's walls, now became its storytellers, sharing the tale of the piano's return and the power of music to heal and transform. The mansion, no longer a place of mystery and fear, had become a symbol of hope. It stood as a reminder that even the most forgotten things could be reborn, that music could heal even the deepest wounds, and that the past could be honored while embracing the future. The forgotten tune of the haunted piano had not only been remembered, it had become a legacy that would live on for generations to come. One crisp autumn day, a traveler arrived at the mansion. He had heard rumors of the haunted piano and the strange music that had been flowing from the mansion's walls. Intrigued and seeking answers, he ventured inside. The mansion's doors creaked open to reveal its inviting, yet mysterious interior. The warm glow of the piano's melody filled the air, wrapping around the visitor like a comforting blanket. As the traveler walked deeper into the mansion, he felt an overwhelming sense of calm. The music was unlike anything he had ever heard before. It was soothing and mesmerizing, and he couldn't help but be drawn toward it. He made his way to the music room, where the hidden piano awaited, its keys glowing softly in the dim light. The traveler knew that he was about to witness something extraordinary. When the traveler laid his hands on the piano's keys, he felt an instant connection. The moment his fingers touched the cold ivory, memories rushed through him, images of a time long past, voices whispering forgotten stories. The mansion seemed to come alive around him, guiding him through the melody with each note he played. His heart raced as he played the music, feeling the very soul of the mansion within his hands. The guardians, who had been watching from a distance, knew something special was happening. They could sense the energy shift in the air as the visitor's music filled the mansion. It was as though the piano had chosen him, just as it had chosen Eliza before. The traveler's song was a new piece, a composition that the mansion had never heard. It was a song of connection, of unity, bringing together the past, present, and future of the mansion. The more the traveler played, the stronger the energy in the mansion became. It was as if the mansion itself was listening, absorbing the music like a living being. The air shimmered with a strange force, and the very walls seemed to pulse with life. Eliza, who had always felt the mansion's presence, now felt a deeper, more profound connection. She watched in awe as the piano's magic responded to the traveler's touch. Suddenly, the room darkened, and a gust of wind blew through the open windows. The air grew heavy, thick with the power of the music. It was clear that something ancient and powerful was being awakened, but it wasn't something to fear. It was as though the mansion was sharing its deepest secrets, revealing itself in a way it had never done before. The traveler's song had awakened an unseen force, a force that was both mysterious and protective. As the traveler played, he began to notice something remarkable. Each note he played seemed to bring the mansion closer to life. The shadows on the walls danced in rhythm with the melody, and the flickering candle flames cast intricate shapes that moved with the music. It was as if the mansion itself was joining in, adding its own notes to the traveler's song. The guardians, moved by the beauty of the moment, joined him. their voices blending with the traveler's music. The melody now filled the entire mansion, echoing through its hallways, up the stairs, and into the farthest corners. It was a song of unity, a gift from the mansion to those who truly understood its magic. The music was not just for those who played it, it was for everyone who was willing to listen and feel its power. In that moment, it became clear to everyone present that the mansion had a heartbeat of its own. The music was the pulse that kept it alive, that kept its memories intact. The mansion had always been more than just a building, it was a living entity, and its true essence was the music that had flowed through it for centuries. The piano was its heart, and the guardians, Eliza, the traveler, and all who played it, were the ones who kept that heartbeat alive. The traveler, who had never expected to become part of the mansion's legacy, now understood its true power. He had been chosen to play the song of unity, to help the mansion find its balance and strength once more. He felt honored to be a part of something so ancient and profound, and as he continued to play, he knew that the mansion's heartbeat would never fade as long as the music lived on. The mansion, with its hidden piano and magical music, had become a symbol of peace and unity. The traveler, Eliza, and the guardians all knew that the mansion's legacy would continue to live on for generations to come. The music would never be forgotten, it would be passed down, shared with all who entered the mansion's doors. And the mansion, with its whispers and melodies, would remain a place of comfort and wonder, a reminder of the power of music and the stories it could tell. And so, the forgotten tune of the haunted piano was no longer forgotten. It was a song that would be played for centuries, a song that would echo through the halls of the mansion, bringing with it the promise of new beginnings and the healing power of music. The mansion had found its true purpose, and with it, the world had discovered the beauty of the forgotten tune. Years passed, but the mansion's melody never ceased. Visitors, both young and old, would often arrive, drawn by the legend of the haunted piano. Each one who ventured into the mansion would feel the magic in the air, the same enchantment that had filled the rooms when the traveler had played. The music, now intertwined with the mansion's spirit, would echo through the halls like a memory, forever preserved in the air. The piano's keys continued to sing the forgotten tune, each note whispering the stories of those who had come before. The mansion had become a place of peace, where the past and the present lived in harmony. Those who entered found solace in the music, a reminder that even the most haunted places could heal and bring comfort. The mansion had transformed into something more than a mere building, it had become a sanctuary for the soul. One bright morning, a young woman named Isabel arrived at the mansion. She had heard the tale of the haunted piano and had come to find the music that had so captivated her dreams. As she stepped inside, she felt the familiar hum of energy that filled the mansion. It was as though the house itself recognized her, welcoming her as one of its own. Isabel's heart raced as she made her way to the music room, where the piano stood waiting. As her fingers brushed against the cool ivory, a sense of familiarity washed over her. She was no stranger to this place or its song. It was as though the mansion had been waiting for her. With a deep breath, she began to play, feeling the music flow through her veins, just as it had for those before her. As Isabel played, the mansion seemed to breathe. The music filled the space around her, and she could feel the history of the house intertwining with her own life. The melody was no longer just a tune, it was a bridge, a connection between her soul and the spirits of the mansion. Each note she played resonated with those who had come before her, the guardians, the traveler, and even Eliza, whose legacy lived on in the music. The air became charged with the presence of those who had played before. Isabel could hear whispers, soft and distant, but filled with love and wisdom. The mansion was alive with their energy, guiding her to continue the song, to keep the music flowing. Isabel knew that she had become part of something far greater than herself. She was the next chapter in the mansion's story, and the music would carry on through her. The guardians, who had watched over the mansion for generations, appeared once more, their presence gentle yet powerful. They surrounded Isabel, their ethereal forms glowing softly in the dim light of the music room. They nodded in approval as she played, knowing that she was the one who would carry the legacy of the piano forward. Her song was a new chapter, one filled with promise and hope. The mansion, too, seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. For centuries, it had waited for the right person, someone who could truly understand its magic. Isabel had found her place within its walls, just as the traveler had before her. The guardians whispered their blessings, ensuring that the music would never fade, that the forgotten tune would always be remembered. With each note, the mansion seemed to grow brighter. The shadows that once clung to the walls now danced in harmony with the music, their movements graceful and fluid. The melody wrapped around Isabel like a protective cloak, keeping her safe from the past's darker moments. She could feel the mansion's promise that the music would continue forever, passed down from one soul to the next. As Isabel continued to play, she made a vow. She would protect the piano, the mansion, and its music. The guardians, the traveler, Eliza, and all those who had come before her would live on in the notes she played. The mansion's heartbeat, its music, would never be silenced. The song of unity would continue, a legacy that would outlast time itself. As Isabel's song reached its final note, a wave of peace settled over the mansion. The air was still, and the music room was bathed in a soft, golden light. The guardians, now satisfied, slowly faded into the background, their work complete. The mansion was at peace, its legacy secured for the future. Isabel smiled as she placed her hands gently on the keys, knowing that she had played her part in a story that would never truly end. The piano, once thought to be haunted, had become a symbol of hope, a beacon of light in a world filled with shadows. Its music would continue, forever carried on the breeze, echoing through the halls of the mansion for generations to come. And as long as the music played, the forgotten tune would never be forgotten again. As time passed, the mansion remained a place of peace, its music never ceasing. But one day a new visitor arrived. A man, weary from his travels, stood at the doorstep of the mansion. He had heard whispers of the haunted piano and its song. With a heart full of curiosity, he stepped inside, feeling the same pull that had drawn so many before him. As he wandered through the rooms, he felt a presence around him, a warmth that seemed to guide him toward the music room. The melody, soft but powerful, filled the air, drawing him closer to the source. He had heard the legends, but now, standing in the room, he felt the magic for himself. The piano was waiting, as it always had, for the next soul to play its tune. The man approached the piano, his fingers trembling slightly as they hovered above the keys. He had never played an instrument before, yet something inside him urged him to try. He sat down, his hands resting on the ivory keys, and slowly he began to play. The melody that flowed from his fingertips was different from the others. It was not the forgotten tune, but something new, a song born from his own soul. As the music filled the room, the mansion seemed to awaken. The air shimmered with energy, and the shadows danced once more. The piano, ever watchful, recognized the new song. It was a gift, a new chapter in the mansion's story. The man smiled, knowing that he had connected with the house in a way no one else had before. He had become a part of its living history. With the man's song, the guardians returned, their ethereal forms glowing brightly in the room. They watched over him, their presence soothing and comforting. The mansion had changed, and so had the music. It was no longer just a haunting melody, but a living, breathing entity capable of adapting to each soul that touched it. The guardians nodded in approval, recognizing that the man had added his own mark to the legacy of the piano. The man felt their gaze upon him, and for a moment he wondered if he was worthy of such a connection. But the guardians, sensing his uncertainty, smiled gently. He had found his place within the mansion, just as those before him had. The music would continue to evolve, each new note adding to the eternal melody. As the man continued to play, the mansion seemed to transform around him. The walls, once dark and oppressive, now seemed lighter, bathed in the glow of the music. The shadows, no longer sinister, swirled in time with the tune. The mansion had become more than a house, it was a living, breathing part of the song, a reflection of the souls who had played before. The guardians whispered among themselves, proud of the progress the mansion had made. It had evolved from a place of fear and mystery to a place of peace and connection. The man's song had sealed its transformation. The mansion was now ready for the future, and the piano's music would never cease. It would live on, carried from one soul to the next, a never-ending cycle of harmony. As the man finished playing, he felt a sudden calmness wash over him. The music had ended, but the air around him was still thick with magic. The guardians, having witnessed the full circle of the piano's legacy, now prepared to leave. They had done their work, ensuring that the mansion's music would continue. The man had become a part of that legacy, and now it was time for him to carry the song forward. He stood up, his heart full of gratitude, and walked toward the door. As he left the mansion, he looked back one last time. The music room was bathed in soft light, the piano standing silently in the center. The forgotten tune had been replaced, but its spirit lived on in every note that followed. The mansion would continue to sing, and the music would never be forgotten. Years later, the mansion still stood, its music echoing through the halls. The new visitor had long since left, but his song had been added to the mansion's history, and the piano still played. Each new soul who arrived brought their own melody, a new chapter in the mansion's story. The mansion, ever changing, ever evolving, remained a place of magic and mystery. And so, the story of the haunted piano continued, its music forever intertwining with the souls of those who dared to play its forgotten tune. The mansion would always be there, waiting for the next traveler, the next guardian, the next soul to add their melody to the eternal song. The forgotten tune was never truly forgotten, it lived on, forever carried by the wind. As time continued to pass, the mansion stood silent, as if waiting for the next soul to find it. But those who lived nearby spoke of strange sounds carried by the wind, faint whispers that seemed to call from the abandoned mansion. Some said it was the wind playing tricks, while others believed the piano still sang its haunting song in the dead of night. One night, a young woman named Eliza ventured close to the mansion, drawn by the whispers. Her heart raced with both fear and curiosity. She had heard the legends and knew the stories of those who had disappeared after seeking out the piano's haunting melody. But tonight, the whispers were different. They seemed to call her by name, urging her to enter. Against her better judgment, she crossed the threshold, ready to face whatever awaited inside. Inside, the mansion seemed to welcome her with an eerie silence. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and dust, but Eliza could hear the faintest of sounds like a gentle hum. She made her way through the darkened halls, guided only by the soft light of her lantern. It led her to the music room, where the piano sat, waiting. Eliza hesitated, her breath caught in her throat as she gazed at the instrument. She reached out, her fingers brushing the cool surface of the keys. With a deep breath, she placed her hands on the piano and pressed down on the first key. The note rang out, sweet and haunting. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a soft breeze swept through the room, and the piano seemed to come alive once again, as if it recognized her touch. As Eliza played, the mansion seemed to awaken around her. The shadows danced in time with her music, and the guardians of the piano, long dormant, stirred. They had been waiting for someone like her, a soul brave enough to unlock the piano's full potential. The haunting melody that had once filled the mansion was now accompanied by a new, vibrant tune, created by Eliza herself. The guardians appeared before her, their forms shimmering in the dim light. They watched her with admiration, for she had unlocked a new chapter in the piano's legacy. The music that had once been trapped in the mansion's walls now flowed freely, a blend of past and present. The guardians smiled, knowing that Eliza had become part of the mansion's eternal song. The guardians, sensing Eliza's pure heart, decided to gift her with something special. They surrounded her, their glowing forms casting an otherworldly light. One by one, they placed their hands over her heart, imbuing her with the magic of the mansion. Eliza felt a rush of warmth and power flow through her, a connection to the mansion and the piano that she could never have imagined. The music swelled around her, and the once muted piano came to life, its notes full of energy and promise. The guardians whispered their final words, urging Eliza to continue the song. She now carried the gift of the piano's melody, the ability to create music that would forever be tied to the mansion's legacy. She was now a part of its story, its future. As Eliza left the mansion, she carried the music with her. The mansion, once abandoned, now thrived with life, its walls humming with the melody she had unlocked. Eliza knew her life would never be the same. She had become the keeper of the piano's song, and the music would continue to flow through her, inspiring those who were brave enough to listen. Word spread of Eliza's connection to the mansion, and soon others came to seek the forgotten tune. Some were drawn by the legend, while others simply sought answers to their own mysteries. But all who entered were met with the same haunting melody, each note a testament to the mansion's enduring power. Eliza had ensured that the song would never be forgotten. Years passed, but the mansion never changed. The piano continued to sing its eternal song, now filled with new life and endless possibilities. Eliza, now an old woman, stood before the piano one last time. She had lived a life full of music, magic, and adventure, all made possible by the haunting tune that had once filled the air. As she played the final note, a sense of peace washed over her. The mansion had fulfilled its purpose, and the guardians, proud of their work, faded into the background. Eliza smiled, knowing that the music would continue long after she was gone. The song would live on, carried from one soul to the next, forever echoing through the halls of the haunted mansion. The forgotten tune would never be forgotten again. Many years had passed since Eliza's passing, but the mansion remained as mysterious and captivating as ever. One cold evening, a stranger arrived at the gates. His name was Vincent, a curious man with a deep fascination for forgotten legends. He had heard whispers about the haunted mansion and the piano that had been said to possess a melody of great power. Vincent was determined to uncover the truth behind the legends. As he walked through the overgrown garden, the wind whispered in his ear, guiding him toward the door. With each step, he felt a strange pull, as though the mansion itself was calling to him. He hesitated for only a moment before pushing open the door and stepping inside, unaware of the journey that lay ahead. Inside, the mansion was just as Eliza had left it, silent, but alive with the echo of past melodies. The piano stood at the center of the room, its ivory keys glowing faintly in the moonlight. Vincent couldn't help but be drawn to it. He felt a strange connection, as though the piano knew him. He approached it cautiously, his hands hovering over the keys. The air seemed to thicken, and the shadows in the room deepened, but Vincent felt no fear. Instead, he felt an overwhelming sense of calm, as though he had found something he had been searching for his entire life. Slowly, he pressed a key, and for the first time in years, the piano responded with a soft, resonating note. It was as if the piano had awakened just for him. As Vincent played, the room seemed to change around him. The walls, once dull and faded, shimmered with an ethereal glow. The air grew heavy with the weight of forgotten memories, and the piano's melody carried through the mansion, reaching the deepest corners of the house. The sound filled Vincent's soul with an unfamiliar warmth, a deep connection to something far beyond his understanding. With each note, the mansion seemed to speak to him, its walls alive with the stories of those who had come before. He could hear faint whispers, the voices of Eliza and the guardians, guiding him through the music. Vincent played without stopping, as if the piano was telling him something important, something only he could hear. As the night wore on, Vincent's connection to the mansion deepened. The guardians appeared before him, their glowing forms once again visible in the shadows. They watched him with approval, for they knew he was the one who would carry the legacy of the piano forward. They spoke softly, their voices like a distant hum, telling Vincent that he was chosen to be the next keeper of the tune. The music, they explained, was not just a melody, it was a part of something greater, something that could not be explained in words. It was a gift, passed down through generations, and now it was his responsibility to protect it and share it with the world. Vincent, overwhelmed but honored, accepted his new role. He knew that his life had changed forever, that the piano's song would now be a part of him. As the days passed, he dedicated himself to learning the full extent of the melody. He played every day, allowing the piano to teach him its secrets, its mysteries. And with each note, the mansion flourished. The once forgotten home now stood proud, its walls alive with the power of the music. People from all around came to hear the haunting tune, drawn by the legend of the haunted piano. Some believed the music held the key to unlocking hidden truths, while others simply sought the beauty of the melody itself. But all who heard it were touched by its magic. Years passed, and Vincent grew older, but the music never faded. The piano's song continued to echo through the halls of the mansion, carried by those who came to play. The guardians, content with their work, faded into the shadows, knowing that the melody would live on forever. And so, the forgotten tune of the haunted piano became a legend once again, passed down from one generation to the next. The mansion stood as a reminder of the power of music, of the magic that lies hidden in forgotten places. The song would never end, its echo reaching beyond the walls of the mansion, carried by the wind, forever lingering in the hearts of those who dared to listen. Years passed, and the legend of the haunted piano continued to spread. Many came to the mansion, eager to uncover its mysteries and hear its haunting melody. Among them was a young man named Thomas, a musicologist who had spent years studying ancient songs and forgotten tunes. He had heard whispers of the mansion and the piano's mysterious power, and he could not resist the call. When Thomas arrived, the mansion seemed to recognize him. The air around him was thick with anticipation, as though the house itself had been waiting for his arrival. The piano stood as it always had, its keys glimmering faintly in the moonlight. But as Thomas approached it, something felt different. The air felt charged, and the shadows seemed to move in time with his steps. He sat down at the piano, and for the first time it felt as though he were about to uncover something truly profound. Thomas hesitated for only a moment before placing his hands on the piano's keys. As his fingers made contact, the mansion seemed to tremble, and the air thickened with the weight of the past. He pressed the first key, and the sound was unlike anything he had ever heard, soft, haunting, yet full of emotion. It was as though the piano had been waiting for him to unlock the memories it held within. As Thomas continued to play, the room around him transformed. The shadows grew deeper, and the walls of the mansion seemed to come alive with the echoes of long-forgotten voices. It was as though he could hear the music of Eliza and Vincent, the guardians' whispers, and the memories of all those who had come before. The melody took on a life of its own, flowing through him, guiding his hands to play the tune it had been waiting for. With each note, Thomas uncovered more of the piano's secrets. The music was like a puzzle, each piece falling into place as he played. The notes seemed to tell a story, one that spanned generations, stories of love, loss, and redemption. He could hear the faint voices of the guardians, their approval clear as he played the song that had been locked away for so long. The piano's melody swirled around him, carrying him deeper into the mansion's past. Thomas felt as though he were no longer playing, but rather becoming part of the song itself. His body moved in rhythm with the melody, and for the first time he understood the true power of the tune. It was not just music, it was a key, a doorway into something beyond this world, something eternal. As the music continued, the guardians appeared before Thomas, their ethereal forms glowing with approval. They watched him with silent reverence, knowing that he had uncovered the truth of the piano's melody. This was the final piece, the song that had been passed down through the ages, waiting for someone with the right heart and soul to reveal its full potential. They spoke softly, their voices like a soft breeze. "You have done it, Thomas. You have unlocked the final note. The song is yours now, but it will never be just yours. It is a song for all who are willing to listen, for all who seek to hear the music of the past and the future. It is a gift, a gift, a gift that will echo through eternity." Thomas, overwhelmed by the weight of the guardian's words, felt the power of the song coursing through him. He knew that he had been chosen to carry the legacy of the piano. The music was now his responsibility, to share with the world and to protect. The guardians, pleased with his heart and understanding, entrusted him with the tune, knowing that he would honor it as it deserved, He stood up from the piano, his hands still trembling from the experience. The mansion around him seemed to sigh, as though a great weight had been lifted. The song that had haunted its halls for centuries was now free, its melody alive in the world once again. Thomas knew that the mansion would always be there, its music waiting for the next soul to discover its power. Thomas left the mansion, the song still playing in his heart. He had become the new keeper of the piano's tune, but he knew that his journey was far from over. The mansion would continue to stand, its legacy alive in the music, passed down from one soul to the next. Each person who touched the piano would carry a piece of its magic, and the melody would never be forgotten. As Thomas walked away, he looked back one last time at the mansion. The lights from within flickered softly, as though the piano was still playing. He smiled, knowing that the forgotten tune of the haunted piano would continue to echo through the ages, a song that would never die. The piano's song had begun to spread beyond the mansion, carried on the winds of time and space. People who had never heard of the haunted house found themselves inexplicably drawn to the melody. Musicians, dreamers, and adventurers alike began to visit, each feeling the same strange connection to the music. It was as though the tune had a life of its own, calling out to those who were ready to listen. Vincent, now an old man, watched from afar, knowing that the song had found its place in the world. He had passed the torch to Thomas, and now the music was traveling across the land, touching lives in ways no one could have predicted. The melody was no longer just the secret of the mansion, it was the heartbeat of something larger, something that could not be contained. One quiet evening, as Thomas sat by the piano, playing the melody once again, he felt something shift. The air grew heavy, and the once familiar tune began to change. The notes that had once been clear and harmonious now seemed to blend together, forming a new melody. This was no accident. It was as if the piano was trying to communicate something deeper, something beyond its previous song. With each passing note, Thomas could feel the weight of this new tune. It was like an invitation, a challenge to unlock something even greater than the song he had already discovered. He played with determination, each key resonating with a power he couldn't quite comprehend. He knew that this was the final key, the last piece of the puzzle that had been set in motion centuries ago. The music swirled around him, transforming the room into a place of both wonder and mystery. As Thomas played, the walls of the mansion seemed to glow, and the guardians appeared once more. Their faces were filled with pride, for they knew that Thomas had unlocked the true potential of the piano's tune. This was the beginning of something new, a new chapter in the story of the haunted piano. The guardians spoke again, their voices softer now, but filled with wisdom. "You have completed the song, Thomas. The tune will continue to evolve, passing from one soul to the next. But now it is complete. It is yours to share with the world, to carry its magic forward. The cycle of the music is endless, and its power is beyond measure." As the guardians faded into the shadows once more, Thomas felt a sense of peace wash over him. The mansion, once dark and silent, now hummed with the energy of the music. He knew that he had fulfilled his destiny, that the haunted piano would continue to live on through the generations. The song was no longer just a memory, it had become a living, breathing entity, one that would touch the hearts of all who listened. He returned to the piano one last time, playing the final chords of the tune. The sound filled the room, but this time it didn't fade. It lingered in the air, vibrating with energy. The melody was no longer confined to the walls of the mansion. It had become a part of the world, a timeless song that would echo through history. Years passed, and Thomas grew old, but the music never stopped. The piano song continued to inspire generations of musicians, artists, and dreamers. It became a symbol of hope, a reminder that some things, like music, never die. People came from all over the world to listen to the haunting melody, and each person who touched the piano left with a piece of its magic. The mansion, now a place of pilgrimage, stood as a testament to the power of the forgotten tune. The tune had become a part of the world's collective soul, its power transcending time and place. And even after Thomas passed, the legacy continued, carried by those who followed in his footsteps, each of them adding their own note to the eternal song. As the sun set over the mansion, the last echoes of the piano's song drifted through the trees. It was no longer just the music of one person, but the song of all who had played it, all who had felt its power. The tune had become a part of the earth, the sky, the very air people breathed. And so, the haunted piano song lived on, forever part of the world's heartbeat. It was a reminder that some things, no matter how forgotten, can never truly disappear. They simply wait for the right person to uncover them and set them free. And when that happens, they change the world. One day, many years after Thomas's time, a new visitor arrived at the mansion. She was a young woman named Clara, a musician who had heard whispers of the piano's haunted song. Clara had spent her life searching for the perfect melody, one that would speak to her soul. When she first heard about the piano, she felt an irresistible pull to it. As she stood before the mansion's gates, she knew this was the moment she had been waiting for. She could already hear the faint echoes of the melody in her mind, calling her to enter. With a deep breath, Clara stepped inside, feeling the weight of the mansion's history on her shoulders. She knew she was about to uncover something truly extraordinary. Clara wandered through the mansion, the walls whispering secrets as she passed. When she finally reached the room where the piano rested, she felt a rush of energy like nothing she had ever experienced. The room was silent, but the air was thick with anticipation. She could feel the piano's presence, as if it had been waiting for her all these years. Without hesitation, Clara sat at the piano, her fingers hovering above the keys. As she began to play, the room seemed to come alive. The tune that had once been forgotten started to awaken, flowing from her fingers as if it had always been a part of her. Clara closed her eyes, lost in the melody. It was as if the piano was telling her its story, and she was the one to carry it forward. The music filled the room, more powerful than ever before. Clara's hands moved with a grace and certainty that surprised even her. She had never played the piano like this before. This was a new sound, a new feeling. It was as if she was not just playing notes, but weaving magic into the air. The song had been reborn through her, and it was even more beautiful than it had been in the past. Outside the mansion, the winds began to stir, carrying the melody to every corner of the land. People who had never heard of the piano felt its pull, its magic drawing them near. It was as though the song had found its true voice, one that resonated deep within the hearts of all who listened. As Clara played, she realized that the song was not just meant for her, it was meant for the world. She could feel the power of the music reaching out, connecting her with every person who had ever heard it, every soul that had been touched by its haunting tune. It was a gift, a legacy that had been passed down through generations, waiting for the right person to share it. Clara knew what she had to do. She had to carry the song beyond the mansion, beyond the walls of the haunted house, and share it with the world. She had been chosen, just as Thomas had been, to be the one who would ensure that the music never died. She played louder, her fingers dancing across the keys, knowing that this was only the beginning. The tune spread like wildfire, reaching far and wide. Musicians from every corner of the globe played the song, each adding their own twist, their own interpretation. The song became a symbol of unity, of connection. It didn't matter where you were from or what language you spoke when the song played, everyone understood it. Clara's name became known to all, and the haunted piano was no longer just a myth. People traveled from all over to hear the song, to witness its magic for themselves. Clara had become the keeper of the piano's legacy, and she was proud to continue what Thomas had started all those years ago. As Clara played the final note of the song, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. The music had done its job, it had found its place in the world. It was no longer confined to the mansion, it had become a part of the earth, the sky, the universe itself. And as she stood there, listening to the last echo of the tune, Clara knew that the haunted piano's story had come full circle. The song would never truly end. It would continue to live on, forever carried by those who played it, those who felt its magic. And when the time came for Clara to pass on, she would leave the piano in the hands of the next person destined to carry its melody forward. The song would never die, it would simply be passed on to the next soul, ready to share its haunting beauty. Thank you for joining us on this relaxing journey with Stories for Sleep. We hope our tale has brought you peace and comfort as you drift closer to your dreams. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel for more magical bedtime tales, and share it with anyone who needs a moment of calm. Until next time, may your nights be peaceful, your dreams be magical, and your heart be light. Sweet dreams.